Welcome, everyone, to OrthoFi's Same Day Start Masterclass, presented and sponsored by OrthoFi, as well as SmileSnap and the New Patient Group. We're so excited to have everyone today. We've got over 800 registrants, and we should have a really great program. We've got three fantastic sets of speakers, starting with Dr. Alex Waldman and Dr. Jamie Reynolds and Danielle Offerman and Brian Wright. Our first speaker is speaking to us today, focusing on virtual consults and what he's learned from doing more than 300 of those virtual consults. Dr. Alex Waldman is an ABO diplomat and a triple Ivy League trained orthodontist. He received his undergraduate and dental degrees from the University of Penn and completed his fellowship at Harvard University, where he received the esteemed Joseph L. Henry Award for Clinical and Research Excellence. Dr. Waldman is an expert on TMD disorders and complex bite issues, with awards from the Society of Dentistry for Persons with Disabilities and the American Society of Geriatric Dentistry. His private practice in Beverly Hills is recognized as one of the leading orthodontic practices in the United States. Welcome, Dr. Alex Waldman.
Good morning and welcome from wherever you are listening from. Looking forward to being the first speaker here just to kick this off. Just talking a little bit about virtual consultations today and how this is essentially one of the strongest and best tools that you're going to have in your practice for generating same-day starts. So I want to talk a little bit about the importance of same-day starts when we reopen. Now, of course, we're all like turning the corner here. And hopefully, wherever state you're in, you're kind of feeling a little bit of momentum as the loans start to roll in, as we start to plan coming back to our office. I think the webinars have kind of pivoted online from emergency mode into really planning how we can get back, how we can do all the things we need to do to keep our patients and our practices and our staff and ourselves safe, but also thinking about how we can return to having any kind of normal business operations. I think what's really been clear and what's emerged over the last few weeks is that there's going to be an incredible pressure to get the production in our offices back up to, if not to pre-COVID-19 levels, at least to some really workable, level where we can afford to keep our overhead, going and pay our staff and ourselves. So the first major key here when we return to our offices from a business point of view is that we're going to need to catch up on production. And we know that because of social separation and what's become clear in the guidelines and recommendations, although we'll be returning to our offices, it may look very different and we may have a lot less chair time. So chair time will be precious, so less chair time generally means less starts. Now, the other thing is that staff has been affected and certainly psychologically and sometimes physically as well, if they've gotten ill, if they had family members that have gotten ill. So we may not be able to count on the same numbers of staff that we've had before to keep our operations running at full speed. If we have less staff, it means less time for follow-ups, and if patients don't start, who's going to be there to make the calls to get them to come in? And the last and probably most important thing why same-day starts are going to be really important when we open is that patients are going to be hesitant to come to the office. As a result, we're going to want to make sure that every minute that we have with them in our offices is going to be really well used and that we don't have them come back for extraneous and excessive appointments. So this is going to be, all of these things are going to come together to create this combination of a strong need for same-day starts as we reopen our practices. And in our opinion, the virtual consultation really is the secret weapon to make sure that every patient that comes to your practice is really set up for success in terms of being able to start and being ready to start same day. Just a little bit of background to why I was asked to give this presentation. So we started doing virtual consultations in our practice about a year ago. I believe it was March 2019. And since then, we've completed about 350 of them, meaning we've presented treatment plans to that number of patients. our experience is that 80% of those patients who went through the process and then elected to come into the office did start the treatment when they came in. You would expect it to be 100%, but it is 80% because there's always a little bit of fall off. And what we've learned is that virtual consultations are the ultimate new patient filter. So let's dial this in a little bit. What does that really mean? So we have to go back to March 2019. And in our practice at the time, we were having a fairly good year. But the things that we were struggling with were that we actually didn't have enough chair time to see all of the leads that were coming in from the online sources. The doctor referrals were staying relatively stable. Keto was going down a bit, but overall relatively stable. Word of mouth community referrals was staying stable, but the online was starting to grow because of the public's a greater engagement in social media and review sites, people finally clicking on our ads, that kind of thing. And so we started getting all these online leads, and we've realized that the online leads were a mixed bag. There were some fantastic patients out there getting referred from online sources, but there were other patients that were not quite as strong. And we needed to figure out a way to filter the patients and identify who are the strong patients so that by the time they did come to our office, they had a much stronger a chance of starting. So that was like the original kind of issue, and that was the original concern. And it has evolved a lot since then to become just a significant tool in our whole new patient process. And I'm going to go into that. And now, of course, there's a big pivot as it's become like a necessary thing with the COVID-19. But what I want to focus on is not virtual consultations as a panacea or a solution for this really difficult time that we're facing. I want you to think of virtual consultations as a very effective tool that you'll have in your consultation toolkit that you can use going forward in your practice. So why is it, at the end of the day, why is it that the virtual consultation is so powerful? And the reason is that by going through this process, think of what the patient already has before they even step into your office physically. They have a treatment plan, and we'll show how that works. They have a fee. They have a relationship with the TC and likely the doctor as well. They have an appreciation of the practice culture, and they have the confidence that they have found their perfect ortho office. So if a patient came into your office with all of that information, obviously the chance of them starting, it may not be 100%, but it's very, very high. And at the end of the day, the thing that we've always struggled with same-day starts is that we've always been ready, right? I'm saying us as the orthodontic industry. We have our systems in place. We're maybe ready to take records. Some offices may be even ready to get braces on, that day, but certainly most offices are willing to do the records and scan and get the patient to sign a contract that day. We've been ready. We have the staff, but the patients haven't always been ready. And psychologically, they have not necessarily been there. They're still in shopping mode when they present to our office. So it's actually a fairly big task for a TC to get someone to same-day start. That should really be a celebration. And in many offices, it is. Wow, a same-day start is a great thing. But it really should be an expectation. Patient comes in and they receive treatment. The way to get there is to make sure that you're fully teed up ahead of time, and that's what the virtual consultation does. So the other reason to do it is not because it's good for us as orthodontic offices and good for our business, but rather because patients love virtual consultations. Why is that? Well, it's kind of obvious. It's an immediate interaction. So as soon as they find us online, or as soon as they are given a referral by their dentist or a friend, they can immediately enter that virtual consultation realm. They don't have to wait 3 weeks for an appointment during the busy times and, et cetera. And they can get right in there, and it allows them to engage also on their own time. So on their own terms, but also on their own time. So they can do it at 11 o'clock at night when time frees up. They could do it at 5 o'clock in the morning if they're an early riser. They don't have to necessarily coordinate with your office schedule. It can be an asynchronous consultation where information is being shared, but not necessarily in real time, and that can be more effective for both parties. Very importantly, and this is what we find our patients give us great feedback on in terms of their highest level of appreciation for this process, really comes from the fact that they do not need to lose time from work or school in order to engage in the process. Let's talk a little bit about, what is a virtual ortho consult, because you'll hear people talk about it and everyone seems to be saying something a little bit different. And they're right, it can be different things to different people. But here's, I think, here's a definition that I have kind of put together, and you can argue with it, and I'm not even sure if it's correct because it's a first stab at it. But let's take a look what it says. A consultation that happens in part or in whole outside of the physical environment of the orthodontic office, in which digital technology is utilized to transmit patient information to be evaluated by the practice, and treatment plan information is shared with the patient. It is not a substitute for an exam. Now, for some people, they might consider that a substitute for an exam, but in our office, every patient will eventually come in and have a physical interaction with the office, which includes an exam and taking records and checking perio and CRCO and looking at the occlusion carefully and doing all of the things that we're trained to. So a virtual orthodontic consultation does not take away from the level of quality of orthodontic treatment or consultation that you provide in your office. It's simply a stepping stone and a first step for a patient to engage with your practice. Now, that could be a very small step or that could be a huge leap. And I'm going to present today different modes of how you can do it in your practice and how we do it. And it's up to you as a practice, as a doctor, to decide how you want to incorporate it. And we're going to give you some good tools and tips to be able to do it. So the first question is, okay, if that's a definition of virtual, do I need software? Can I just like have the patient text me some photos or email me photos and I'll text them back? And the answer is yes. And that could be completely defined under the rubric of a virtual consultation. However, what we've learned in our experience is that specialized software helps. And our experience was that we first, when we started in March of 2019, for the first, I think, 9 months or so, maybe 8 months, 9 months, we were using our own like landing page on our website that we would point patients to. Or we had a little kind of like bar at the top that they could find if they had a good eye. But it was kind of like kind of mom and pop, it wasn't exactly very slick. But it worked. It certainly worked. It was hard to find though. In November, I believe, we found out about SmileSnap. It was basically doing everything that we were doing just at a much higher level, much more sophisticated. And that's when we switched to using SmileSnap. And we've been using that now for about the last 6 months or so. And I feel from this experience of seeing how it works, both as like a DIY virtual consult, as well as using software, I really find that specialized software is critical because it streamlines the process. There's one centralized hub for the patient, doctor, and treatment coordinator to find all the information you need. You're not like getting the photos on, staff A's email and the text goes out from staff B's Google text and the patient calls back on the, it's not all happening in different places. It's all happening in one centralized hub. And another great thing about SmileSnap in particular, which I'll be talking about mainly today, is that there's a website widget we'll see when a patient lands on your homepage. It comes up, it's fairly large, so they can't miss it. And that invites them to do the virtual consult. And that's whether they find you organically or whether you point them to that. It makes your site sticky. So suddenly your website goes from being informational to being an interactive hub for your business that will, that will generate consultations and ultimately starts. So the other nice thing about specialized software, obviously it becomes a high tech and it's an easier experience because the tools that are built in are really easy, as we'll see. And the other thing is, as I discussed, there's built-in communication features. So email, text, video, everything you would need to do to have that communication with the patient is going to be built in to the software. The one thing I want to mention, though, this is not a magic bullet, meaning I have some friends of mine who have tried it and they reached out to me and say, Alex, I have this software X, Y, or Z, whatever they're doing, and I'm not getting any virtual consult. So you have to realize that just because you have a widget on your website, right, it's not going to necessarily generate patients. You have to get patients there. And so you have to create a funnel. So the question is, how do we drive patients through this virtual consult funnel? So there's obvious ways that we're going to build up our web presence, whether it's Google Ads, social media, review sites, all of those kind of primary sources for patients on the internet that are then going to get to your secondary source of your website. So that's very important to have that strong. If you don't have that, you're not going to get those online leads. Some other creative ideas is we put a virtual consultation link and a big banner on all of our staff email signatures. So everyone who interacts with our office, whether it's a vendor or a parent or whoever, is going to see that we offer these consults. They can click on it and it takes them right to the landing page. You want to build strong systems that the team is confident in. This is a really different concept, and it's different for patients. It's certainly different for the doctor, and it's very different for staff. And they're going to look at it a little bit askew and not know how to handle it initially. So you have to really impart to them and educate them on the value of this process. And also that the staff then, when talking to the patients, really do need to emphasize that virtual consults are not a secondary option. This can't be the stepchild to a real consult. This has to be deemed as a really amazing first step that leads you into your treatment just by a different path and has so many advantages as we discussed. So let's talk about the 7 steps to the perfect virtual consult. Now, video has changed a lot. And so we're going to talk a little bit about how video plays into this. But what I am going to be presenting to you is for people who are fairly new to this process. This is essentially the process that we've used for the last year or so. And it's really amazing for when you don't have a lot of time on your hands, because most of it is done with the TC interaction. There's a little bit of doctor involvement. And then later on in the presentation, I'm going to talk about how, with more time on your hands, or just changing some of your internal systems, you may want to incorporate a lot more video into this, and I'll explain to you how we're doing that. So let's talk about this. So the first step, when we're in the SmileSnap system, is that the patient is going to engage with the SmileSnap widget. If you take a look at this image, you'll see on the bottom left of the screen, this is my website. At the bottom left, they get this pop-up, and it invites them to start their online assessment. All of the fields you see are customizable, so you can go into the dashboard and customize all of it. Once they start their online consultation, essentially there's 2 major pieces of data that we're looking to get from them. The first one is biographical and chief complaint type of issues, and then the second one will be photos. So let's take a look at this. This would be two typical responses. And these questions are all completely customizable, and you can change them from a pull down to a write-in, whatever you want to see. And you will probably, once you get going with it, you're going to want to change your questions based on the type of responses you're getting. You'll get better at asking the right questions. But even if you ask fairly generic questions, you're going to get some great information. And we have found that this data that comes through is like much better information than anything that we've ever gotten on any kind of form. And you can really figure out your patient. On the right, you'll see this is a very detailed orient patient. When we ask what matters to you about your orthodontic treatment, the answer is not cost. It's risks. Can my teeth get loose? At the bottom, how many millimeters can we intrude? So this is either someone who's had a consultation before, or is extremely kind of research oriented, has done a lot of research on the internet. We are going to be speaking to this patient in a very, very different way than we're going to be speaking to a patient who is all about maybe cost or focused on one particular appliance. And so the information you get is really powerful. And so you might not know this patient. You may not feel that, this is someone that was referred to by a doctor and you can access a whole history, but they are going to provide you with a lot of info. The next step is that the patient is going to need to submit photos. And one of the great things, it is not easy to get good photos from a patient, as you probably all know. And so it's really important that there's instructions involved. And in the SmileSnap app, whether they're doing it on their computer or on their phone, and by the way, the widget does work on the phone as well really nicely. It's obviously very easy to take photos on your phone, so it's almost you want to encourage them to do it on their phone. There's a little video, they can learn how to do it, and then there's for each photo that they take, there's a separate panel that will show them exactly what we're looking for and give them specific instructions about how to get the best photo. So really easy. And what you end up kind of getting are photos like this. These are photos that I just cut and paste right out of SmileSnap. And as you see, they're pretty diagnostic. I mean, you can look at these and pretty much know what you're going to want to do. Of course, in a consultation, there's a lot of assumptions, right? There's assumption that there's no CRCO shift, that there's no perio issues, no TMJ issues. So that gets down into the TC, kind of, dialing in some of that. And then, of course, why we still need an exam at the end of the day. Here's another patient. These were taken outside, and so different lighting, but you can see that these are fairly good photos, not like what we would take in our office, but something that you could use to discuss a potential plan with a patient. Okay, so that's step one, gathering that, kind of interaction and kind of gathering that, data from the app. So the second thing that happens is once the patient completes that process, there's two notifications that happen. The first one is a notification to the practice where you will get an email. Whoever wants to be on that email will get it, maybe the doctor, TC, whoever. And then the second part of it is that the patient is going to get an auto confirmation email. And all these emails are customizable. So we have, here's my staff and myself and my associate, Dr. Ascarena, just a nice little group picture we did right in our office, nice and informal. But just to let the patient know, we've got the data, we're going to be taking a look at it, and it basically tells them that we're getting right back to them. This is an extremely important step because some patients do this like in the middle of the night or early in the morning. We're not in the office yet, so at least they get some immediate feedback. I believe they get a text as well. They get some immediate feedback that we are going to look at it and going to be in touch with them soon. Okay, now you also can look at all this data on the dashboard, and the dashboard is a really great tool. You can sort it based on, there's different kind of like statuses, patients awaiting consult, consult sent, visit scheduled, so you can sort it and keep updating their profile as you go along. And as you click on their chart, it opens up all their data, it opens up their photos, etc. And this is also, it's really smart that they have the photos there, because one of the things sometimes you'll get is like the information, but not the photos, because they didn't have time to do that. They didn't realize, oh, that's going to take me another 2 minutes. So the TC has to follow up and they can quickly see in the dashboard, oh, that patient started, put in a consultation request, but we don't have the photos yet. And then we'll talk a little bit more about some of the other dashboard features as we go through the presentation. Step 3 is that the TC will follow up. They're going to reach out if there's any data missing, and they're going to connect and really personalize the experience. So the one thing you're going to learn when you start doing virtual consultations is that it really comes down to creating this emotional experience for the patient. And the more we can make it just like a regular consultation, the better. So there is going to be that level of TC engagement, and they can kind of decide how much they want to get involved at that stage. And then, of course, they're going to make sure that they notify the doctor to review the case. And that's really, really important. The next step is that the doctor is going to review the case. In SmileSnap, if you're only looking at photos and there's no video involved, this just takes a few minutes, like 1 or 2 minutes per case. We use Slack, so we're just kind of slacking that back and forth. And you can also make an internal note of your notes in your plan in a SmileSnap, which is actually what we do now. A few important things for the doctors, it is okay to say no to virtual consultation. Sometimes you'll get some photos and you just don't feel comfortable making an opinion, and that's okay to say to the patient, thank you so much for doing it, but we're sorry, we just don't feel comfortable making a recommendation without you coming in, so let's get you in for the visit. If you are going to offer a treatment plan, you do want to be as specific as possible with a single treatment plan and fee, and not like multiple treatment plans, and that's always true for every consultation, but it's much more true for a virtual consultation. And because you have less time and ability to kind of explain those nuances and those differences. Now, if it's a case where it's like, it could be extraction, non-extraction, surgical, non-surgical, it is okay to give those 2 options, but don't give a range. Give this treatment plan and this fee, or it could be this treatment plan and this fee, and it may depend on what your goals are. Let's maybe set up a video and talk about that kind of thing. And then we're going to communicate with the TC via the internal note in the SmileSnap chart. One of the cool things about SmileSnap is that actually you don't have to write the treatment plan to the patient over and over. You can actually create like set treatment plans, and we have a treatment planning system in our office. It's called TAPS Ortho, and every basically discrete way we treat a patient has a number on it. So we essentially create, every time we add a new patient in, oh, we've never done that one before, we just add it in, and then in the future, you can just click which treatment plan it is that you're assigning to the patient, and it'll populate information, as we'll see going forward. So really cool feature. So once the doctor is done, step 5 is the treatment coordinator is going to get more involved with the patient. This is like probably the most important part of the process, because this is where the treatment coordinating happens. This is where, you know, the patient's going to have the most interaction with the practice. And my TC, Stacy, she uses either a call most of the time or a video chat. She likes a call because she likes to call the patients like around 5 o'clock when they're on their way from, you know, back from work or in traffic. When she's spoken to the patient and she's gone over the treatment plan, explained it to them, told them a little bit about the fees, how things work, some of the special features of our office that we use, dental monitoring, et cetera, et cetera. She'll tell them about Invisalign. She'll tell them about light force braces. You know, she'll tell them about all the things that we do that are special about our practice and really try to emphasize those features. Once she's done with that, then she's going to send a follow-up email through SmileSnap that will have all that information in there so the patient has something to hang on to. One of the things that you can consider is doing some special offers in your virtual consultation, like offering, you know, free accelerated treatment or free whitening. And we find that in this patient population, it tends to work, you know, really nicely. So obviously your goal is from this that you want to schedule the patient, but if the patient does not schedule for an in-office start visit or exam visit, then she's just going to follow up as she would, you know, normally do. And we have a recall system, and that the patient will be put and treated just like the patient that we saw for an in-office exam and get the same kind of follow-up until they tell us, you know, no. And of course, you can also offer, she can offer a video consultation with me, with the doctor, and we're doing a lot more of these now, and I'll go into that in a few minutes. Now, one of the questions I get is, should the patient commit and sign contract and pay at this stage, or should you wait till they get to the office and do the exam? That's really, I think, up to every practice, so you'd have to decide. In our office, I don't like to sign a contract until I can see the whites of someone's eyes, and I see if this is a patient that I really, really want to treat, and I feel it's a good match, and there's no concerns or issues. So we do not do that, but I have had some people tell me they've had excellent, you know, success with that, and obviously you have to have a few, you know, kind of caveats in that contract if you should decide not to treat the patient because of any risks that you evaluate when you do eventually see them. SmileSnap Pro launched a few weeks ago, and one of the features it has is live video consult. This is working really, really well now, and it allows a two-way, you know, a video chat between the doctor and the patient, or the TC and the patient, and very easy just to launch it right there in the SmileSnap app. I believe it's based on the Twilio platform, so it's HIPAA compliant, very, you know, easy to use. And again, you know, you could use your own video, but you don't want the staff using their own FaceTime, right? They, you know, they may not have it set up to be completely HIPAA compliant. So this is giving you a built-in HIPAA compliant way. And, you know, all the patient's information is right there. You don't have to go look for their number and find their information. You just assign it to the patient, schedule it, start it. You can do one live right then and there, sending them like a text with a link, or you can do a scheduled consult where they'll get a link, it goes into your calendars, and then the TC and the patient can engage, or the doctor and patient can engage. That is a great new feature there. And then this is kind of when the TC is going to send out the information to the patient. So like I said, in our office, she makes the call. She wants to do that personally and have that, you know, really high touch. But then she's going to be sending out an email that has the information. So there's a place in the dashboard for each patient where you can select here the treatment plan, the treatment type, some notes, and that's all like pre-selected. So you've already written all of that. It's like ready to go. And then you just select your fee range, down payment, insurance benefit, and when you select that, that will allow, that will populate the email, as we'll see in a minute. Once you click Send Plan to Patient, that will send out the email, and it looks something like this. Obviously, this is going to be vertical in an email, but I had to break it up here. You know, it's going to be branded with your practice. It's time for your beautiful new smile. Here's some information, blah, blah, blah. And it's just a nice way for a patient to have an actual official you know, record of that consultation. Okay, so just a few tips for the TCs out there, or for doctors, please share this with your TCs. The more information you give, the better. You know, although we've been trained to not give fees to patients, What we've learned by going through this process is that the more information you give, the more cases you're going to close. Patients want clarity, they want openness, and they want communication. Make sure that you communicate the specific value of being treated in your office. Give a detailed treatment plan so they really feel they have a plan. Inform obviously that it's subject to change when you see them, but that's obvious and to a certain extent, but maybe obvious to us, but not to them. And you have to state clearly that the next visit will be to start the treatment. And here's where that same day start comes in, so that when they go through this process, essentially they're only going to schedule and come in once they've already kind of decided, or they know that they are going to be starting treatment that day. Okay, and the last step here is that they're going to come in for their in-office start visit. So what does that look like? It's probably a shorter visit than your full consultation. It is going to include some records, maybe x-rays, professional photos, maybe a digital scan to submit a case. You're going to do an examination like you normally would, maybe a short recap of the treatment plan, maybe not. It depends if it's needed. And then we're going to sign the contract and pay a down payment if that has not already been done in your office. I'm sorry, in the consultation. Okay, so what we've spoken about until now is really using SmileSnap as an incredible tool to give patients a fantastic service of being able to provide them orthodontic information without coming to your office. Obviously, huge value during this kind of COVID-19 era, but there's a lot of value when we're in our offices as well, and we're busy and it's the summer and we can't manage seeing more than however many consults you see, and you could be seeing all of these SmileSnaps. We had sometimes in the summer and in the fall when we started using SmileSnap, we were doing like 6 or 8 or 10 of these a day. And not every day, someday you'll just get 1 or 2. But the point being is that if you do it just with the photos and with how I recommended it, you can actually do a lot of those. It's a lot of work for the TC, but for the doctor, it's just going to take you a few minutes for each. So using the photos only is a really efficient and great way to provide that level of information. And that's what we've really, gone over so far. What we've learned in the last few weeks, kind of because we've been forced to, is that video consults where they go beyond just looking at photos, but actually having the doctor discuss things with the patient, that can be extremely powerful. And we've started doing those in our office now, and we plan on continuing that once the office reopens. So the concept is really changing now. So before, everyone kind of went through the same process. They would do a SmileSnap. We would give them a consult based on the doctor's treatment plan, and it would be really more of a TC activity, very light doctor time. And that model can and should be used going forward. But there's another way that you can use SmileSnap, and that is using SmileSnap not as an alternative to a real consult, where a patient has to choose, or you choose for them, okay, you're gonna get an in-office consult and you're gonna be a SmileSnap patient, but actually using SmileSnap as an entry point for every new patient. Let's say you did that. Every patient that called the office, every patient that came through the internet, every patient that clicked on something, everyone was guided to start their process through SmileSnap. What would that look like? So the first part of it would look like what we've already discussed, that some patients, we would just do the photos with them, and we would deem that maybe that's what they need. That's all. They just want a quick opinion. Maybe they're getting a second opinion. All they want is just like us to evaluate it and interact. It gives us a chance to show our stuff, and that's perfect. But there are other patients, particularly in these times where we're going to have less visits and less slots for consults, where we're going to want to take that farther. So maybe they'll start with a SmileSnap, take some photos, give us the data. Based on that, we will then decide maybe that they're going to do a video consultation. And what does that video consultation look like? That's the next slide. We'll look at that. But that's going to be a more kind of typical type of consultation. And there's a lot that's kind of hashed out in that, so that the next time they come in, it will be very similar. It will be for a start visit, but that will be even a shorter start visit. It's really just records and an exam, and everything has already been decided and discussed. You've met both parents, etc. But it's really important. What we've learned when you do video is that it's hard to see teeth on video. And some people have really good cameras and some not. So it's really helpful to have those photos and all that patient biographical information in that system already. So when we are doing these video consults now, we have the SmileSnap up, and we're still, we're still looking at those photos. So let's say you have every patient go through a SmileSnap. Another outcome of going through SmileSnap could be that you're not recommending any consultation because you see that this patient needs a referral out. So you're using SmileSnap to identify the patients who you want to get referred out to perio or TMJ or whatever it is, oral surgery, prior to them even seeing you. And of course, by going through that, by the time they come in for a video consult or an in-office consult, they've already taken care of their specialty items. You don't have to refer them out, and that's going to increase your same-day start. Another way to use it is even put kids on SmileSnap, right? Even little kids, and then you'll be able to interact with them and say, you know what, you're not ready for treatment. Let's put you on observation. And then the next observation could be done through a SmileSnap as well, instead of bringing patients into the office. Or you might want to bring them in once just to meet them, take a pan, and then every subsequent observation until they're ready to start treatment could be done with a SmileSnap. So instead of bringing someone in, taking them out of school just for those quick little 2-3 minute checks every 6, 8, 10, 12 months that take a lot of time for the patient but are very short for us. What about putting in a recall system where you would just contact the patient every 8 months to send you another SmileSnap? So again, we're looking at here as using SmileSnap as the entry point for every potential way we're doing consultations, and we're going to see a lot of diversification in the whole consultation experience as we get back into this new environment in our offices. Just a quick note: if you are doing video consults already, or if you're thinking about it, here's some quick notes of how to do a very successful video consult. So the first tip is you want to structure it just like a regular consultation. We've been scheduling 30 minutes for these. Obviously, normally our consults are like 50 minutes or an hour, but we're not taking records, so that saves time, and we're not waiting for the doctors. That saves time. So it's basically structured though like a regular consult. It's very, very important to have the SmileSnap photos and the medical history ahead of time. So you really have all that information that you can look at. You can get a little peek at the patient's teeth on video, but it's really hard to see when they're like getting close and giving you not a great angle, especially if it's a kid. But with the photos, you've got what you need. And the way we've been doing it is that we've been using Zoom for this, so that we can have a multi-way consultation, even if the parents are in separate locations. So sometimes we'll have up to 4 or 5 people on this consultation at the same time. The treatment coordinator does their normal introduction, get to know the patient, gather the chief complaints, go over the information they've submitted on SmileSnap and in the medical history. Then the doctor enters the video. We do like a little virtual exam, have them come forward, look around, open, close, get a profile shot, all of that. Have a discussion about the treatment plan, and then the doctor clicks out and exits, and then the TC will close, showing them appliances, whether it's Invisalign or Expander, whatever we discussed, she'll show them virtually, and then she'll go over the fees, and if there's not time, she'll follow up with an email. But the idea being is that we're telling patients that once you've completed the process, we know we've had the discussion, and now it's essentially just time to come in to get started. So we've had the discussion, we know both parents, we've had the fee, and now there's literally no reason for them not to same-day start. There's no reason for the mother to say, I need to go speak to dad, because dad is already there. And so that's why we're really thinking about doing these, even for our regular patients. When we get back to regular office hours, it just makes a lot of sense to go through this process to help the same-day start process and to increase the conversion rate, to save those precious start visits and consult visits. This is what my desk looks like when I'm doing the video conference. We've got the Zoom going on over there. That's Nicole, my TC, and a patient. I've got the medical history up, and I've got the SmileSnap up. And again, the advantages of these consultations is that we have all of the decision makers are present. There's no indecision when the patient comes to the office. because they've met the doctor, we've had a nice connection, we've talked, we've schmoozed, we've gone through our whole thing already. This, of course, it tees up and shortens the start visit considerably, and the patient leaves the consult with a treatment plan, fee, and they're simply scheduled to start. Exam records, case submission. So this is just a nice, I'm sure many of you are doing this, but just a little summary of how you can do it. And I like to always leave my presentations with a tech tip. So before we finish up, I have 1 minute left. I'm going to give you a tech tip. So you might think you're looking at just a blank wall. And I'm sure the organizers are wondering why I didn't choose a nice wall in my office with a nice background. And here's the reason. So this is not just a wall. This is a whiteboard. So this is called, I'll tell you what it is. It's called Escreo paint. Escreo, and you can do it yourself. It's like a DIY project, and you can write on your walls. I don't know if you guys can see that. Use maybe a different color so you can read it. It's ESCREO. And if you have a nice wall in your office, in your private office or somewhere private in the staff room, go ahead and paint it. And this has been really helpful for me to really like map out what is going to be the new consultation, process. What I found is that in the last few weeks, we've been doing a lot of thinking and a lot of rethinking about our like processes, and it really helps to write and flesh things out. So if you've been looking for this kind of solution, it's kind of a low tech, I would say, solution, but it's really fantastic, called Escreo. So thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you guys listening.
Thank you so much, Dr. Waldman. That was a fabulous presentation. I hope the audience got a lot of great information from that. You'll definitely want to stay tuned for this next presentation. It's a fabulous presentation by Dr. Reynolds and Danielle Offerman that essentially blends a lot of this great technology and toolkit that Dr. Waldman was talking about with some other powerful software tools and patient acquisition strategies and techniques and processes. Dr. Reynolds and Danielle will be going over basically a step-by-step way to not only do virtual consults as they've learned to do it in their practice, but really maximize all of your same-day start processes